Hello my fluffy little beans, my name is Wolfret. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. I am a Therian and furry YouTuber. Hello Erebus. So I got a request a while ago to make a mask tutorial, so that's what I'll be doing today. This is the lovely comment. I will be tagging the person below, you can read the description, and this is the commission that I got. I will put the order here, like the description they sent me, so that's what I'll be making. In this video, I am documenting and showing all the steps and explaining all the steps in order to make a Therian mask. So my specific style looks like this, so if you're interested in making a mask in this style, absolutely give it a watch. If not, I'll see you later. Bye, stay fluffy. Now let's get into the video. Hello. As you already know, this video is a mask tutorial, so let's start with the materials you will need. To make your mask, you will need a paper mache cat mask. You can get multi-packs from Amazon, eBay, and other large brands such as Etsy. Paper, cardboard, hot glue, felt. I would suggest white felt. Paint or markers to color your mask. Some people even use eyeshadow. Mesh, fur, and something to seal the paint. I'd suggest Mod Podge. It's cheap and doesn't smell. The first step in this process is prepping the base. As you can see, I chose to remove the ears and fill the gap with cardboard. If you want to change the eyes, you can use anything to mark the shape, such as pencils or markers. For the next step, you're going to need paper, your base, and a marker or pencil. In order to make the muzzle, you first need to figure out how large the base of the muzzle needs to be, which you can do by generally estimating or measuring it on your paper. Next, you're going to trace out this shape. It's one of my favorites and definitely works very well with more toony and less realistic styles. It's got a nice curve and isn't too blocky. For the next step, you're going to need to trim down the shape that you just made. Next, position the muzzle exactly how you would like it to be once it is finalized. If you're displeased with the shape or size, trim it down or repeat the steps previously stated. After this, we're going to trace out two shapes on either a new piece of paper or the scraps of the paper that we just used to trace the muzzle. No, the reason why we're adding a second piece to the ear is to make it more 3D. For an example and reference, these are the ear shapes I will be making for a fox mask. After this, we're simply going to trace out these shapes on a piece of cardboard. When tracing your ears, on the second time through, flip over the shape to mirror the shape previously created. Finally, cut out all of these pieces and make sure that they fit neatly onto your mask. Here's a quick clip of me attaching the muzzle to the mask so you can get a sense of how it should look. We won't be attaching the ears quite yet due to the fact that it is easier to felt the entire mask if we do both pieces separately. While we're on the topic, I might as well bring up the next thing we're going to do. The next step in this process is felting. I personally prefer to begin felting my masks by making a line of hot glue running from the center top of the forehead all the way down straight to the middle point of the tip of the muzzle. For the next step, you're either going to choose the right or left side. For this instance, I'm going to start with the right side. Add in some hot glue on the top right side, just above the brow to the back of the head. I'm going to follow this down beside the eye and down onto the cheek. This part is slightly more tricky, so we'll go a little bit slower. Next, you're going to put a line of hot glue underneath the eye. Next, you're going to fill in the lower cheek as well as the seam where the muzzle meets the rest of the mask. For the next step, fill in the side of the muzzle with hot glue and continue to push down the felt and make sure to stretch it out so it lays evenly. Finally, repeat the same steps on the other half of the mask. For the very final step of felting this section, You're going to put hot glue on the very front of the muzzle as indicated in the photo. Pull your felt as tight as possible to make it as flat and smooth as you can. For the last steps of felting, you're going to poke a hole in the eyes. Cut out 4 sections, making a line up, down, and across. After this, fold in the flaps that you just made. Make sure it's tight and smooth. Use hot glue to secure it into place. Finally, cut off excess felt from around the mask and fold it tightly against the mask. To felt the ears, you're going to put hot glue all over the front face of the ear and repeat what we did with the mask on the ears by taking off excess felt and cutting it all off and then folding it in tightly to make sure that the hot glue and felt is smooth and sleek. Repeat this on both pieces and on both sets of ears. To attach the ears to the mask, we're going to take the back piece and put it up to the mask, tracing the curve of the edge. Be sure to do this on both earpieces on their respective sides. After this, cut off the bottom pieces that you just traced. Now we're going to assemble the ears. We'll start by adding the back of the ear to the mask as such. I forgot to record this section, but basically in order to add the top part to the back, you're going to put it at a slight angle as shown in the final picture. Put the pieces onto the mask and secure it with hot glue. Finally, repeat this step for both ears. Now, as we get towards the end of our mask, it's time to start coloring. Because every mask is different and unique, instead of showing you exactly how I painted mine, instead I'll be giving out some tips and tricks that I use. Because I personally prefer painting my masks, most of the tips that I will be sharing today will not be for markers or for eyeshadow coloring. Now with that out of the way, let's get started. When I'm painting, it's important to have extra of whatever colors you're using. The reason for this is that because of the texture of felt, it's extremely difficult to spread out paint evenly across the mask. You'll often end up with blank little white speckles from where you missed covering the felt. For this reason, I'd suggest having extra paint so then you can be sure to get into all the little crevices of the felt. But don't worry, if you ran out of the custom color you made, there's a quick and easy solution. It can feel impossible to mix the same custom color over and over again and get it exactly right every time. To fix this, what I prefer to do is clean off my brush and then dip it in clean, clear water. I then use this wet paintbrush to go over the paint and spread it out using the water. This works because it loosens up the paint and thins it. This will actually make the paint lighter ever so slightly, but it won't affect the tone too much, and it will get your paint to seep into all those little crevices that you couldn't before. While we're on the topic of water, I'd like to bring up the fact that water can actually be used for blending and shading of your paint colors. You basically do the same thing that you would do if you ran out of color and needed to spread it across your felt. It's the same thing except blending 2 colors together or just spreading it out further until it thins and becomes clear. Now it's time for the true last steps of this process. Now it's time to add your final details. This includes your fur, eyes, and band. We'll start with the eyes because those are probably the most difficult of all of these 3 options. First, you need to color the background of the eye if it's any special color. If you need a black eye and yet your mesh is white, then just paint your mesh black. Also, make sure that the holes of your mesh are still open because the paint can actually fill those up and make it impossible to see through. Next, you're going to simply add your iris. The iris is the colored part of the human or animal eye. It's the part around the pupil. Next, simply add the pupil. I usually just make an oval or a simple shape, a single color, usually black. One thing to note is that when you're working on the eyes and on plastic mesh specifically, do not use wet brushes. Use a dry brush. That way it'll actually stick to the mesh and be able to dry and seal. If you use a wet brush, it's not the end of the world, but it is more likely to smudge and get messed up because most meshes that are used are in fact plastic, or at least in the instances I've seen. It's the same thing with blending and shading. The rules that I said before that apply for felt when you don't have enough paint or you want to shade, use the dry brush. Do not use water or a wet brush because it will smudge the entire thing and it will not go well. All of your paint will just run off. Once you're done making and decorating your eyes, put a line of hot glue around the shape of the eye that you created. Then stick the mesh onto it. Make sure that all of your paint on the mesh is dry and sealed. It's pretty important to seal your eye mesh because the paint is really susceptible to being scratched off. I learned the hard way how easily it gets scratched and it was not fun, so definitely, if you can, seal your eyes at least. Now the rest of the process is pretty self-explanatory. Cut out and add the fur wherever you want it to be. I generally put it inside the ears or on the side of the cheek. And finally, add on your band to hold the mask onto in place. Make sure that the band is on the longer side. You would rather have it too long than too short. You can always make it shorter, you can't make it longer. Unfortunately, I learned that the hard way. If you wear your masks too tight, it will warp and make the mask thinner and smaller, and it won't be too appealing. It will also break the muzzle off in some instances. What I prefer to do is make sure that the band reaches from ear to ear, because that's about where the mask will rest. And that's all. See you later, my fluffy little beans. Bye-bye! Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. It really means a lot to me. Another shout out and thanks to Matrix Makes Memes. They were the one who suggested this video idea, and they finally got me to actually make my first long form video, which I'm super excited. I hope you guys love it, and I hope it was helpful. Alright, bye again for real this times. Alright, bye-bye.